If I had known one phone call could turn my whole summer into a secret, I would have let it go to voicemail. But I answered anyway, because that is who I am. I pick up the phone. I show up. I fix what is broken. I just never thought the thing that would crack first would be me. My name is Evan Miller. I am 27, and I live in a small town off Lake Erie in Ohio, where the air smells like pine and water, and everyone still waves like they mean it. I am a freelance carpenter, the kind of guy who can rebuild a deck, patch a roof, and make an old house feel steady again. My dad taught me everything before he died 5 years ago. He was the best handyman in the county, and when he passed, he left me his tools and his quiet way of living. Keep your head down, do your work, stay out of trouble. Drama was never my thing. I liked my life simple: wood, nails, a steady paycheck, and a quiet night with a beer by the lake. That was my plan, until early June, when my phone rang and a voice I had not heard in years said my name like she was testing how it sounded. "Evan, you still fixing houses?" The voice was warm but careful. It took me a second to place it, then it hit me like a memory I had not opened in a long time. "Marianne Keller?" I said. "Yeah," she answered, and I could hear a small smile, like she was surprised I remembered. "Josh gave me your number." Josh Keller was my best friend growing up. We spent summers fishing off the pier, cutting through backyards, and sneaking cheap beer behind his dad's shed. He moved to New York 5 years ago, chasing a finance job. I stayed here, doing the work my hands understood. Marianne stayed too. Back when we were kids, she was the older sister who rolled her eyes at our dumb pranks. I remembered her as a teenager with dark hair and a sharp tongue, always acting like she had better things to do. I had not seen her in years. I had not thought about her much either. Until that call. "The roof's leaking," she said, "and the deck is a mess. If you're free this summer, I could use you." Work was work, and if I was being honest, my quiet months had been too quiet lately. I did not think twice. "I'm in," I said. "I'll swing by tomorrow." The next morning, I loaded my truck with my dad's tools, saws, hammers, a ladder, and enough supplies to start a war with rotten wood. The drive took 20 minutes, but it felt longer. I kept telling myself it was just a job, just Josh's sister, just a lake house that needed repairs. Then I turned down a gravel path, and the lake house came into view. It sat on a quiet stretch of shoreline, surrounded by tall pines that swayed like they were whispering to each other. The house was old but sturdy, with weathered cedar siding and a wide deck that wrapped around the back, facing the water. The roof looked tired, and the deck looked worse. Rotted boards, loose railings, the kind of thing that could put someone in the hospital if they were not careful. Marianne was waiting on the porch when I pulled up. She wore jeans and a loose white shirt, her hair tied back in a messy bun like she had not tried too hard, but it still looked good on her. She was not the girl I remembered. This Marianne was calmer, steadier. Her face had a softness that came with years, but her eyes held something deeper, like a story she was not ready to tell. When she smiled, it was small and careful, like she was measuring me. "Evan Miller," she said, crossing her arms. "All grown up." I climbed out of the truck with my toolbox, forcing a grin like I did not feel my chest tighten for no reason. "Marianne Keller," I said. "Still bossing people around?" She laughed softly, and the sound surprised me. It was not sharp like I remembered. It was warm. "Josh is in New York," she said. "So I have to settle for bossing contractors now." We walked around the house, and she pointed out the damage. The leak spots on the ceiling inside, the warped boards on the deck, a few windows that would not seal right. I nodded, taking notes, already mapping out the job in my head. It was big. 2 months if I worked steady. She did not hover. She let me measure beams and tap on boards while she drifted back inside, moving through the kitchen like she belonged there, like the house still knew her. By noon, I had started tearing out rotten deck planks. The lake was calm, reflecting the sun like a sheet of glass. Sawdust stuck to my arms, and sweat ran down my back. I was focused, the way I always got when work took over. Then the screen door opened behind me. Marianne stepped onto the deck with a glass of iced tea. She set it on the railing next to me without saying much. When I looked up to thank her, I caught her eyes on me. Not just a quick glance, a look that stayed. It was quiet, but it landed heavy, like she was seeing something in me I had not meant to show. My throat went dry, and it was not from the heat. "Thanks," I said, keeping my voice steady. She nodded, then turned to go back inside. But before she disappeared through the door, she paused, like she wanted to say something else. She did not. The rest of the week followed the same rhythm. I showed up at 8 every morning. I worked the deck, climbed the roof, replaced boards, hammered, sawed, and fixed. Marianne drifted in and out, gardening, reading on the porch, cooking things that made the air smell like herbs and butter. We talked, but not much. She asked about repairs. I asked about Josh. Safe topics. Easy distance. The kind of space that keeps people from getting hurt. But by the end of the week, the distance felt thinner. She started lingering longer when she brought me water, standing a little closer when she checked my progress, watching me work like she was trying to understand what kind of man I had become. One afternoon, I was sanding a new plank when she leaned against a post, quiet as the lake behind her. "You're good at this," she said. I kept sanding, but my hands slowed. "It's what I do," I said. Her voice softened. "Your dad would have been proud." The sander went quiet in my hands. Nobody said my dad's name much anymore. I swallowed, surprised by the tightness in my chest. "Thanks," I said, and when I finally looked up, her eyes were on mine again. Hazel, flecked with gold in the sunlight. She held my gaze a beat too long, and something in me shifted, like a nail getting pulled loose. I looked away first, pretending to focus on the wood, because that was easier than facing whatever was growing in the air between us. Marianne nodded like she understood something I did not, then walked back toward the house, leaving me alone with the sound of the lake and my own heartbeat. That night, driving home, I told myself it was nothing, just a job, just an old friend's sister, just a look that lasted too long. But deep down, I knew I was lying. Because I could still feel her eyes on me, and the truth I did not want to admit was simple. I liked it. And if she kept looking at me that way, I was not sure how long I could keep faking like I did not want it to. By the second week, I started showing up earlier than I needed to. I told myself it was because the roof was a bigger mess than I expected. I told myself it was because summer jobs could dry up fast if you did not stay busy. But the truth was, I liked the quiet moments before Marianne came outside. I liked hearing the lake breathe and the pines creak, and knowing she was inside that house, moving through her morning like she had been doing it her whole life. That thought should have felt normal. It did not. It felt dangerous. Every time my truck tires crunched over her gravel path, I pictured Josh, his laugh, the way he called me brother even though we were not related, the way he trusted me. Then, I pictured Marianne's eyes, and my chest tightened like it was choosing a side. I kept working anyway. The deck came first. I tore out the last of the rot, replaced beams, laid new planks, and reinforced the rails. My hands knew what to do. My mind was the problem. It kept drifting to the small things. The way Marianne's hair fell loose when she forgot to fix it. The way she leaned over the porch rail to watch the gulls, not even noticing I was staring. The way she said my name like it meant something. On Tuesday, she brought out lunch instead of just a drink. A turkey sandwich, thick with avocado wrapped in foil, and a little bag of chips like she was feeding someone she cared about. "You didn't have to do this," I said. She shrugged like it was no big deal, but her cheeks warmed just a little. "You work like you forget you're human. Eat." I sat on the steps and ate while she stood near the post, arms folded, watching the water. The silence between us felt different now. Not empty, not awkward, full. "How's Josh?" I asked, because I needed something safe to say. Her mouth tightened for a second before she smoothed it out. "Busy. New York suits him. He likes the noise." "And you?" I asked before I could stop myself. "You like it quiet out here?" She glanced at me, not sharp, not defensive, just honest. Sometimes it's too quiet." Her voice was calm, but there was something behind it, a loneliness she did not dress up with jokes or fake smiles. I felt the urge to say something that would fix it, like she was a loose board I could nail down. But I knew better. People did not work that way. Still, I found myself saying, It won't always feel like that. She studied me like she was deciding whether to believe me. You say that, like you're sure. I almost laughed. I was not sure of anything lately, not even myself. Wednesday was the day the weather turned. The morning started warm and bright. I climbed onto the roof to pull up old shingles and check the beams underneath. The roof was worse than it looked. Water damage had spread farther than Marianne thought, and I knew I was going to need extra supplies. I was wrestling with a stubborn strip of shingles when the air shifted. The breeze went heavy. The light dimmed. Dark clouds rolled in over the lake like a slow bruise. I should have climbed down right away, but pride has a way of making a man stupid. I wanted to finish the section before the rain hit. I wanted to prove I could handle it. The first drops came fast. Then the sky opened. Rain slammed the roof in thick sheets, soaking my shirt in seconds. The shingles turned slick under my boots. I grabbed my hammer, my pry bar, tried to gather my tools before they slid away. Then my foot slipped. It happened so quick I barely had time to curse. 1 second I was crouched near the edge, the next I was sliding, my stomach jumping like I was on ice. I caught myself for half a breath, then my hands lost the grip. I fell. The world flipped. Rain in my eyes, the ground rushing up. I landed hard in the muddy grass beside the house with a thud that knocked the air out of me. For a second, all I could hear was the rain and my own breath, sharp and ugly. Then I heard her. "Evan!" Her voice cut through the storm like it belonged in my bones. I blinked water out of my eyes and lifted my head. Marianne was running out from the porch, barefoot. She wore a thin summer dress that clung to her as the rain soaked through. Her hair was down, plastered to her cheeks, and she did not care. She did not hesitate. She dropped to her knees beside me, hands hovering over my shoulders like she was afraid to touch me and afraid not to. "You okay?" she asked, breathless. I forced myself to sit up, wincing as pain shot through my side. "I think I'm bruised," I said. "My pride's worse than my ribs." She stared at me for half a second, then something broke loose in her face. She laughed, not a polite laugh, not a careful one. A real laugh, bright and unguarded, like she had forgotten she could do it. It hit me harder than the fall did. Because it was the first time I saw her like that. Alive, not guarded, not alone. "You're impossible," she said, and her hand finally touched my arm. Her palm was warm even in the cold rain. That touch sent a shock through me. I told myself it was just nerves, just adrenaline. But my body knew better. "Come on," she said, standing and pulling me up. "Inside. Now." I tried to walk it off, tried to act like it was nothing, but she kept a hand on my elbow, steadying me like she was not letting go until she knew I was safe. Inside, the house was warm and smelled like lemon cleaner and herbs. She shoved a towel into my hands and pointed toward the kitchen. "Sit," she ordered. "Yes, ma'am," I said, trying to keep it light. She shot me a look, but there was heat in it now. Not anger, something else. She boiled water for tea while I dried off, my shirt clinging to me, my jeans streaked with mud. I tried not to notice the way her dress hugged her body when she moved. I tried not to notice how her wet hair darkened around her neck. I failed at both. "You're going to catch a cold running around like that," I said, nodding at her soaked dress. She raised an eyebrow. "Says the guy who just fell off my roof." "Fair," I muttered. She handed me a mug. Steam curled up into the air between us. Our fingers brushed when I took it. A simple thing. But it felt like a spark. We sat at the small kitchen table while the rain hammered the windows. The silence was heavy, but not awkward. It felt like we were both listening for something underneath it. A truth. A confession. A mistake. "You didn't have to come out there," I said finally. "I would have figured it out." Marianne stared at me over the rim of her mug, her eyes steady. "Maybe I wasn't worried about you figuring it out." My breath caught. "Then what were you worried about?" Her jaw tightened like she was fighting herself. "Maybe I just didn't want you out there alone." The words hit me in a place I did not have armor. I tried to joke, to dodge it. "You're gonna make me think you care." She didn't laugh. She leaned forward just a little, her voice quiet and certain. "I do care, Evan. My heart thumped hard enough that I felt it in my throat. The room felt smaller, the air warmer, the rain louder. I looked down at my hands around the mug, because if I looked at her too long, I knew I would do something stupid. Something I could not take back. "You shouldn't," I said, the words rough. Mary Ann's eyes softened, and she tilted her head like she could see right through me. "You're not as tough as you pretend to be." I let out a short breath. "I'm good at pretending." "I know," she said. "I've been watching you all week." That made my stomach drop, not because it was scary, because it felt good. We sat there, rain and tea and silence, and for the first time since my dad died, I felt like someone was looking at me and not just seeing a man with tools. She was seeing me. I didn't know what to do with that. When the rain finally slowed, I stood to go back out, because work was the only thing that kept me steady. Mary Ann followed me to the door. On the porch, she stood close enough that I could smell lavender on her skin under the rain. "You should take the rest of the day," she said. "I'm fine," I answered, though my ribs disagreed. She studied me, then nodded like she knew I was lying. "Fine. But be careful." I stepped off the porch, then looked back. She was still there, arms wrapped around herself, eyes locked on mine. The look was not casual anymore. It was a question. "Do you feel it too?" My throat went tight. I gave her a small nod that I hoped said enough without saying too much. Then I turned away, grabbed my tools, and forced myself back to work. But my hands were shaking. Because the truth I did not want to admit was getting harder to hide. Mary Ann Keller was not just watching me, she was waiting. And I was not sure how much longer I could keep pretending I wasn't waiting too. After the storm, things did not go back to normal. They only looked normal if you did not pay attention. Mary Ann stopped pretending the house was just a job site. And I stopped pretending I was only there for work. The deck started to feel like a shared space, not a project. The kitchen started to feel like a place where two people could sit too long without a reason. Even the quiet felt different, like it had a pulse. I kept telling myself to be careful. Josh was my best friend. The town was small. People noticed everything. Mary Ann was 12 years older than me, and she carried herself like she had lived through things I had only heard about. But every day, she made it harder to stay careful. July settled over Lake Erie like a warm blanket. The days were long and hazy, and the air smelled like pine and sun-warmed water. I was halfway through the repairs, and the lake house looked better than it had in years. New planks shined on the deck. The railings were solid. The roof patches held strong. The work should have made me feel satisfied. Instead, I felt restless. Because the better the house looked, the closer the end got. And the closer the end got, the more I thought about leaving. Not the job. Her. Mary Ann started bringing lunch more often. Not because she needed to. Because she wanted to. Lemonade in a mason jar. A sandwich wrapped tight. Once, she brought out corn on the cob and laughed when I tried to eat it without making a mess. "You're not as smooth as you think you are," she said, her eyes bright. "I'm a carpenter," I said. "I'm smooth with wood, not corn." She laughed, and I felt it right in my chest. We talked more, too, not just about Josh or repairs. She asked me questions that were not safe. "Do you ever think about leaving this town?" she asked one afternoon, while I measured a board. I kept my eyes on the tape measure. "Sometimes. But I don't know where I'd go." She nodded like she understood. "It's easy to stay when everything feels familiar." "What about you?" I asked. "You ever want to leave?" Quote. Her face tightened for a second, then softened. "I wanted to, once. Before everything. Now I don't know if I want to run or if I just want to breathe." I looked up then, because the honesty in her voice pulled my attention like a hook. She was standing by the porch rail, hair loose, sunlight catching the gold in her eyes. She looked steady, but there was a quiet ache under it. "You can breathe here?" I said. She held my gaze. "I can when you're around." Those words sat between us like a lit match. I did not know whether to blow it out or let it burn. That evening, when I was cleaning up, she asked me to stay for dinner. It was the first time she said it straight, like she was done acting like it was casual. "I made too much pasta," she said, leaning against the kitchen doorway. I should have said no. I should have gone home and slept and reminded myself this was Josh's sister. Instead, I heard myself say, "Sure." Dinner was simple: pasta, salad, and bread that she warmed in the oven. We sat at the small table, and the light from the lamp made the kitchen feel softer than it did in the day. We talked about my dad. She asked about him like she actually wanted to know, not like people in town who mentioned him out of habit. I told her how he taught me to measure twice, cut once. How he used to tap a beam and listen like he could hear the truth in the wood. Marianne listened the whole time, eyes steady on my face. When I stopped talking, she said, "He'd be proud of you." That sentence hit me so hard my throat tightened. I stared at my plate, pretending I needed to move noodles around. I did not want her to see how much it mattered. But she did anyway. Her foot brushed mine under the table, light as a question. I froze. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. After dinner, we went out onto the deck. The night air was warm, and the lake was dark and quiet, reflecting a thin line of moonlight. We leaned on the new railing I had built, and for a while we just listened to the water. Marianne spoke first. "After my divorce," she said, "I forgot how to let anyone close. It was easier to be alone than to feel disappointed again." I swallowed. "I get that." She glanced at me. "Do you?" I took a breath. After my dad died, I built my life around work. It was easier than wanting things. Wanting things feels like giving them away to hurt you. Marianne turned her body a little, facing me. Her eyes looked softer than usual, but there was something sharp in them too. "And what do you want?" she asked. My heart kicked hard. I could have lied. I could have made a joke. I could have said I wanted steady jobs and a new truck and a quiet life. But her eyes made it hard to hide. "I don't know," I said, and it was the closest I had come to telling the truth. "I'm still figuring it out." She nodded like she respected that answer. Then she surprised me by walking inside and coming back with 2 glasses of white wine. "I don't usually do this," she said, handing me one. I took it, fingers brushing hers. That spark again. Small, but real. We sat on the deck steps, the wood still warm from the day. The lake looked like it was holding its breath with us. Marianne took a sip and said, "You ever think about what you'd build if you could build anything?" Quote. I let out a breath, relieved by the safer question. "A shop, my own place. A repair shop where I can do things right. Not rushed, not cheap." Her smile was soft. "That sounds like you." "What about you?" I asked. She stared out at the water. "I used to want to travel, to see the world. Then I got married, and I started shrinking to fit someone else's life." Her voice stayed calm, but I heard the hurt under it. I wanted to reach for her hand. I wanted to tell her she did not have to shrink anymore. But I didn't move. Because my mind kept dragging Josh into the moment like a weight. The next day, Josh did it himself. I was on the deck, drilling a post, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I wiped my hands and checked the screen. A text from Josh. "How's the lake house coming? Marianne says you're killing it." My stomach dropped. He had talked to her, she had talked to him. She had said my name to him like it was normal. I stared at the message too long, my heart pounding. I typed back something quick and plain. "Coming along, roof solid, deck's almost done." Then I shoved my phone back in my pocket like I could shove the guilt away with it. Marianne stepped out a minute later, carrying a glass of water. She walked toward me, and before she could say anything, her eyes flicked to my face like she could tell something changed. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said too fast. Her gaze sharpened. "That was Josh, wasn't it?" Quote. I didn't answer, and that was answer enough. Marianne's mouth tightened. She set the water down gently, like she was making herself stay calm. "What did he say?" she asked. "He asked how the repairs are going," I said. "He said you told him I'm killing it." Her eyes held mine. "I did." "Why?" The word came out rougher than I meant. She didn't flinch. "Because it's true. And because he's my brother, he checks in. I didn't tell him anything else. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her. But the guilt stayed. I shouldn't be here, I said quietly, more to myself than to her. Marianne's face softened. Yes, you should. The house needs you. My chest tightened. That's not what I meant. The air shifted between us. The lake breeze felt cooler all of a sudden. Marianne stared at me for a long second, then said, Evan, I'm not asking you to do anything you don't want. I laughed once, short and bitter. That's the problem. Her eyes narrowed. What is? Quote, I looked at her, really looked, and the truth rose up like it had been waiting. I want too much, I admitted. Marianne didn't move. She didn't smile. She just watched me like she was waiting for me to finish. I want to forget that Josh exists for a minute, I said, voice low. I want to stop thinking about the town. I want to stop thinking about the age difference. I want to stop thinking about what I'm allowed to feel. Her breath caught. I saw it. The way her chest rose. The way her fingers curled against her palm. Evan, she said, and my name sounded like a warning and a wish at the same time. I stepped back because if I stayed where I was going to touch her. I was going to do something I had been fighting for weeks. I need to work, I muttered, grabbing my drill like it could save me. Marianne didn't stop me. She just watched me with an expression I could not read. That night, I should have gone home. But when she asked me to stay for dinner again, I said yes, like I didn't have a choice. We ate in silence for a while. Not uncomfortable, just heavy. Like both of us were holding words in our mouths, afraid to spit them out. After dinner, the power flickered. The lights blinked once, then went out. Marianne exhaled like she was annoyed. Storm's probably messing with the line. I stood up. I can check the breaker. You don't have to, she said, but I was already walking down the hallway. The house was darker than it felt before, lit only by the faint glow from the windows. The air smelled like dinner and lake wind. I found the breaker box and flipped the main switch. The lights snapped back on. When I turned around, Marianne was standing at the end of the hallway. She hadn't followed me loud. I hadn't heard her steps. She stood there in a soft shirt and shorts, hair loose around her shoulders. The light behind her made her look like a silhouette at first. Then she stepped forward, and her face came into view. Her eyes were steady. Her voice was low. I can't keep doing this, she said. My heart slammed against my ribs. Doing what? She walked closer, slow, like she was choosing every step. Sitting across from you at dinner like it's nothing. Watching you leave every night like I don't care. Acting like I don't feel it when you look at me. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. Marianne! She stopped a few feet away. Close enough that the air between us felt electric. I know this is messy, she said. I know what people would say. I know what Josh would think. But I'm tired of living like I'm already done. Her eyes didn't blink. Then she took one more step, and her voice sharpened just enough to cut through every excuse I had left. Stop faking like you don't want this too, she said. My whole body went still. Every thought in my head went quiet except one. I did want it. And she was close enough now that if I moved even an inch, I would be crossing the line for good. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket again. I didn't look away from her, but I knew who it was before I even checked. Josh. And whatever his message said, I could feel it coming like thunder right before a storm. My phone kept buzzing like it was trying to save me from myself. Marianne stood in front of me in that hallway, eyes locked on mine, breathing steady even though I could see the tension in her shoulders. She had just said the words out loud, the ones I had been avoiding since early June. Stop faking like you do not want this too. I wanted to reach for her. I wanted to pull her close and forget everything else existed. But the buzzing in my pocket was a reminder that nothing about this was simple. Not Josh. Not the town. Not the 12 years between us. Not the way a line, once crossed, could not be painted back over. I forced myself to look down and pull out my phone. Josh's name lit up the screen in a message. You got a minute? Need to talk. Call me. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like the fall off the roof all over again. Marianne's eyes flicked to the phone, then back to my face. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't step away. That made it worse. It made me feel like she was choosing this, even now, even with the risk staring at us from my screen. "I should call him," I said, my voice rough. Marianne nodded once. "You should." Her calm almost broke me, like she had already accepted whatever storm was coming. I stepped back, not far, just enough to breathe. I hit call and lifted the phone to my ear. Josh answered on the first ring. "EV," he said. His voice sounded normal, too normal. "What's up, man?" "Hey," I said. I tried to match his tone, tried to sound like my heart wasn't pounding. "You said you needed to talk." "Yeah," he said, and then there was a pause, a long one. "Listen, I'm thinking about coming home for a weekend, maybe next week." "Next week?" The words hit like a hammer. "Oh," I said. "Yeah, for what?" Josh exhaled. "I haven't been back in a while. I miss the lake. And I've been worried about Marianne." My throat tightened. Marianne didn't move. I could feel her presence like heat behind my shoulder. "Worried?" I repeated. "She acts fine on the phone," Josh said. "But she always sounds like she's holding something back. You know she's been alone out there. I hate that. And Mom and Dad being gone, it's just, I don't know, I feel guilty." Guilt. That word sat in my mouth like metal. Because I knew guilt too well now. "I get it," I said quietly. "She's doing all right, though." Josh chuckled once. "Yeah, she told me. She said you've been helping a lot." "That, you're doing a great job." My eyes slid to Marianne. Her face was unreadable, but her gaze didn't drop. She looked like she was waiting for me to do the right thing, whatever that meant. Josh kept talking. "I'm glad you're there," he said. "Seriously, you always were solid. I trust you." The hallway felt smaller. My chest felt tight. I stared at the wall like it could hold me up. "Yeah," I said. "Always." There was another pause. Then Josh's voice softened. "Evie, can I ask you something?" My heart slammed. "Sure," I forced out. "You ever feel like life got away from us?" he asked. "Like we blinked and suddenly we're adults with jobs and no summers left?" Quote. It was not the question I expected, but it still hit, because it was true, and because right now, my whole life felt like it was tilting. "Yeah," I said, "I feel that." Josh sighed. "I just want to come back and make sure she's okay. And I want to see you, too. We should grab a beer, like old times." "Yeah," I said again, voice tight. "That sounds good." "Cool," he said, and his tone brightened, like he had solved something. "I'll text you when I know the dates. Tell Marianne I love her, all right?" My mouth went dry. I glanced at her, and for the first time her expression cracked. Not fear, not sadness. Something like pain mixed with hope. "I will," I said. "All right," Josh said. "Talk soon, brother." "Talk soon," I whispered, and ended the call. The silence after the call felt louder than the rain ever did. I held the phone in my hand, staring at it like it was proof of what I was about to lose. Marianne spoke first. Her voice was quiet. "He's coming back." "Yeah," I said. She nodded like she had expected it, like she had known this moment would arrive. "Then you should go." The words stung. "Go?" I repeated. Marianne took a breath, her eyes shining a little, even though she was fighting it. "Evan, I'm not going to be the reason you lose your best friend. I can't do that to him. Or to you." My chest ached. I stepped toward her without thinking. "This isn't your fault." "It's not your fault either," she said, and her voice shook now. "But it is real, and real things have consequences." I swallowed hard. "So what? We just pretend none of this happened?" Marianne's laugh was small and sad. "We're already good at pretending. You said so." That hit me, because it was true. I had lived in pretending for years. I looked at her, at the woman, standing in a hallway of a house full of memories. A house she was trying to keep from falling apart. The same way she was trying to keep herself from falling apart. "I don't want to pretend anymore," I said. Marianne's eyes held mine. "Neither do I." Then she stepped closer again, not fast, not desperate, just sure. I meant what I said, she whispered. Stop faking. My breath caught. I lifted my hand, slow, giving her a chance to stop me. She didn't. My fingers touched her cheek, and her skin was warm. Her eyes fluttered shut for a second, like she had been waiting for that touch all summer. And then I kissed her. It wasn't wild. It wasn't rushed. It was soft at first, like we were both scared of breaking something. But the moment our mouths met, something inside me unclenched. Like I had been holding my breath for weeks and finally let it out. Marianne's hands slid to my chest, gripping my shirt like she needed to anchor herself. I pulled her closer and the kiss deepened, slow and honest, like it had been building with every look and every touch and every unsaid word. When we finally pulled apart, her forehead rested against mine. We can't do this, she whispered. I know, I said, breathing hard. But my hands didn't let go. Marianne's eyes opened, and the truth in them almost undid me. He's going to be here next week. I know, I repeated. She swallowed. And when he is, we have to be careful. I nodded, even though the word careful felt like a joke now. Marianne stepped back, wiping at the corner of her eye like she hated that she was about to cry. You should go home tonight. I wanted to argue. I wanted to stay. But she was right. If Josh showed up and saw my truck here late, if he walked into the wrong moment, it would explode. So I grabbed my keys from the counter and headed for the door, my heart still pounding. Marianne followed me to the porch. The night air was cool, and the lake was dark. The water moving slow and steady like it didn't care about human mess. At my truck, I turned to her. Marianne, what happens when he comes? She stared at me, and the moonlight caught the gold in her eyes. We act normal, she said. For him. And what about us? I asked. Her throat moved like she was swallowing something hard. We wait. Waiting felt like torture. But I could hear the truth in her voice. She wasn't pushing me away. She was protecting what mattered. Before I climbed into the truck, she reached into her pocket and pressed a folded piece of paper into my hand. Don't read it now, she said. I looked at the paper, then back at her. What is it? Quote. Just something I need you to have, she said, voice soft. Read it when you're gone. I nodded and slipped it into my jacket pocket. I drove home with the window down, letting the lake air hit my face like it could clear my head. My mouth still tasted like her. My chest still felt like it was on fire. At home, I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't crack a beer. I just sat on the edge of my bed and pulled the note out of my pocket. My hands were shaking when I opened it. Inside was her handwriting, neat and steady. Evan, I'm scared, not of you, of how much you make me feel. I forgot what it was like to want someone who sees me. If you want this too, come back when the leaves start turning. October. The deck might need another coat of stain, and I will still be here. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. I read it again, then again, until the words felt like they were carved into me. Josh was coming next week. The town would keep watching. The line we crossed could ruin everything. But as I folded the note and tucked it into my wallet, I knew something I could not unknow. That summer job had turned into a promise. And when October came, I was going back.